Horror Lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you. I'm your Wednesday night host here at BodyBags. It is week 345. And so, what do we have this week? A movie that I have not seen in forever, and I wish this thing would get a decent release. But it hasn't. Of course, I'm referring to that old movie from 1980, Blood Beach. Jeffrey Bloom directs. Of course, the only thing that I think of note that he'll be remembered for in 1987, Flowers in the Attic, if you've ever seen that one. As a kid, I just remember seeing that book lying around my house. I think my mom was reading that. But Jeffrey Bloom, interesting cast in this film. But let me just go into how this came about, really. Well, you know, these days with the pandemic and everything going on, some of us have a lot of extra time on our hands, and how that time is distributed, it's tiresome in a way. I mean, you know, trying to get things done at the same time, hampered at home and looking after kids and whatnot. But I've had this movie Blood Beach on my mind for a while now, and so the other night, a couple nights ago, I went and did this random search on my TV just to see if it would come up and see if it was rentable, and it did, but it came up in a way that surprised me. There's an app, I think it's Fearflix. It's an app for the smart TV, and I downloaded it, and right there it was. I mean, and supposedly in its uncut edition, modified for the TV. The transfer wasn't too bad, but there it was in this free app, Fearflix, I think it is. And there's a bunch of movies. It's all free. Anthropophagus, Oasis of the Zombies, some other things. So anyways, having it there ready at my disposal, I revisited this movie first time in for absolute, I can't tell you the last time I saw this movie. But it's one of those movies, again, I just wish would get a decent release, whether it's 88 Films or Scream Factory. But I don't know. I think there's some legal issues going on there with rights and who has rights and whatnot. But I was able to, not once but a few times, revisit it. So let's jump into, from 1980, Blood Beach. Again, directed by Jeffrey Bloom. The only other thing he was noted for, I think, was Flowers in the Attic from 1987. Let's see, we got David Hoffman sort of leads the cast as Harry, our lead, I guess, protagonist. Marianna Hill as Catherine. But then we get Burt Young from Rocky. Paulie, I've never seen this guy in a movie outside of the Rocky films. I don't know why. It's probably stupid, but I've never seen this guy. It was an absolute trip and a half watching his performance, although I don't think he gets near enough screen time as he probably ought to. But then it's anchored also by John Saxon, which is, man, who doesn't love John Saxon? So really at the centerpiece of this film, what drives the narrative, again, this is 1980, and I don't know, I'm almost 50 here, just in a couple weeks I'll be 50, and so, you know, I'm 10 in 1980, and the decade of the 80s is just about to unfold before me in all of its glory. And but I remember the TV spots for this thing, you know, the girl that is being sucked down into the sand by some unseen creature. And, you know, I just have some fond freaking memories of this movie. And sometimes those fond memories meet reality when you get to revisit thinking of Up From the Depths. The first time, well, when Scream Factory put out that nice edition, I think there's 2 films on there, Demon of Paradise, I think. And I got to revisit that. That was some harsh reality that I had to somehow deal with. That film did not quite match up with what I remembered. And Blood Beach, there were some things, though, that I was able to really enjoy. But, you know, the creature effects, really what you have here is you have a beach, stretch of beach in California that is being menaced by this unseen creature, or creatures, we're not sure, right? And but this creature lies underneath, and the tagline is just, you know, of course, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, you can't get to the water because there's this creature living under the sand that is feasting on anything that crosses its territory. So, you know, John Saxon needs the lead detective who sort of has to lead this investigation, and he's somewhat hampered because he just doesn't have enough money. Of course, the running idea is there's a serial killer run amok You get David Hoffman's character, who has connections with the first victim that we see on screen, who gets eaten. He has a history with her daughter. She'll come back into the picture, and together those two will sort of be our protagonists of the film. But Burt Young sort of tags along with our with John Saxon's character, and man, I'm telling you, it was so funny seeing a movie from 1980 where Burt Young, he's a lot like his Paulie, but he's a cop, right? And but he's sort of playing, he's the guy who says the most politically incorrect things, even for 1980, and he's getting slammed for it. And of course, it's great just seeing this sort of, this foreshadowing of things to come down the pike. I mean, these guys don't know what political correctness is even about, but yet we see a glimpse of it in this movie, and it's funny through his character because he just doesn't shy away from, the whole issue of being awkward or bad time. He just doesn't care, and it's great watching Burt Young just go through this, and this is not a perfect movie by any stretch. In fact, the creature, as revealed by the end of this film, does not live up to any fond memories that I might have had having revisited this film. And it does beg a lot of questions. I did notice that it's Compass International Pictures that had its hands on this, and they're like basically going out of business. They're out the door, and the big thing that they had been known for up at that point was, of course, John Carpenter's Halloween. But this film would be noted for several people that were part of the production of it. The composer, Gilman Lee, of course, he'll go on to compose the Andromeda Strain, the $6 Million Man, huge influence on me as a little kid, and the Sentinel in '77. The cinematographer who'll shoot this, Stephen Poster, I think you say it, he'll go on to shoot movies like The Dead and Buried in '81, Strange Brew, that funny comedy out of Canada in '83, Donnie Darko in '01, and of course The Box in '09, I think. And then you look to the special effects, and we get two guys here. One who will go on, Dan Congeni, I think. He'll go on to things like Child's Play 3 and work on Army of Darkness. He'll be one of the guys. And Seven in '95. And then there's another guy who will also go on to do things such as Any Which Way You Can, if you remember that Clint Eastwood flick, Arachnophobia, Natural Born Killers, in fact, The Ring in '02. So, I mean, there's a handful of guys that are, you have to excuse me, I'm pretty sure, I'm sure there were gals attached to this thing as well, but there are a few guys here attached to this that would go on to do a lot of things ahead of them. Unfortunately, Jeffrey Bloom isn't one of them. He'll do a few things, but he really doesn't have much going forward. Of course, John Saxon will have a great career. Burt Young will have his Rocky franchise. I'm not sure about the rest of the cast. But anyway, Blood Beach. The thing that I think about most about this movie is how awesome would it be if this thing got the royal treatment by, say, an '88 film, Scream Factory, and and sort of re-brought back to life that old vintage poster art of the girl being sucked down into the sand with her arms out. Throw in a bunch of documentaries, maybe dig up Jeffrey Bloom wherever he's at right now to do a director commentary on this thing, and maybe talk about Compass International, and maybe just talk about, I know this thing was made for like $2 million, and you look at this movie comparably speaking to the movies around it, and you wonder, where did the money go? Because this movie really does fall short of where other movies will be in light of their budgets. And so, I mean, there's a lot of questions with this movie. But man, I'm telling you, maybe outside of just revisiting for nostalgia, I think the thing that was the biggest surprise to me was just seeing Burt Young, because I had no clue, no memory at all that Burt Young was actually in this movie. And to see his character, that was maybe the most pleasant surprise. Some of the things still look kind of cool, and some of it's still a bit creepy, just this idea of this unseen menace. The end is got one of those endings that just begged for an extension, a sequel of sorts, which never came, and maybe that had to do with rights, being that Compass International was going out of business, and it's just one of those movies that just went off into limbo and just still there even to this day. I really wish somebody would get their hands on this somehow, some way. Shoot, even bring John Saxon back to do a commentary on this thing. But yeah, Blood Beach. So how long has it been since you've seen it? I'm sure right now we're all revisiting, and just maybe even some of us are getting tired of how much stuff we've actually watched up till now. But it was nice. Fearflix is that app, excuse me, that you can check out. And there's a few movies in there. I mentioned a few. If you haven't, if you're unfamiliar with it, just search it up and download that thing. Just take a quick peek in. If you don't like it, get rid of it, whatever. But this is the only place I am aware that you can watch Blood Beach for free. And in fact, I couldn't even find a spot where you could even rent this thing. But, so, Blood Beach in week 345, a Jeffrey Bloom film. Again, thoughts? When's the last time you had? Does anyone out there who is actually watching me now have a copy of this in your collection? Be it VHS, maybe an old DVD that actually foreign DVD got released, maybe. Does anyone even have this? When's the last time you saw it? What do you think about this? What do you think about Burt Young's role in this thing? But it's not a terrible film. It just begs a lot of questions as to, man, it's too bad it's one of those that just sort of fell through the cracks in the sense of production, and why didn't certain things materialize the way it just seemed like maybe it was headed. But I do still have fond memories. I would love to see Scream Factory give this and put on some old radio spots or TV spots on this thing, because those commercials were fantastic. So, anyways, week 345, just a little bit of traveling down the road of nostalgia, I guess. Again, as I've said before, all my hopes and prayers are with every one of you. My wife works in the grocery industry, so there is always this constant anxiety level attached to that. And but so far, it has not touched us and continues not to touch us, thankfully. And I hope and pray the same for each and every one of you. Sorry if this review just seems sort of not quite as on key as some. I really just wanted to talk about it. Maybe mostly just for the sense of venting out into the air of how much I wish this movie, and if someone does have a really ironclad reason why somebody like 88 Films or even Arrow or Scream Factory has not released this to this point, let me know down below or message me if you know me straight up. Alright, stay safe, stay inside, do as much as you can, and we'll keep rolling along. I think next week is label week for BodyBags, and so definitely look forward to those reviews. As always, go Bills.